Good evening and welcome to Thorold City Council. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'll call for the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Sharon that council adopt the agendas as published on March 1st, 2018, and the revised General Committee agenda published on March 5th, 2018, for the meeting of March 6th, 2018.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And I'll go right into my mayor's report. It's quite brief tonight. Well, the March 1st deadline to submit applications for the residential rental licensing bylaw has passed. Staff recognize there are some landlords who were unaware of the bylaw and will be providing 2 more open house sessions for them to meet with staff to discuss their applications and their requirements. The first meeting will be held Thursday, March the 8th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And the final meeting will be held Wednesday, March 14th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Both meetings will be held here in the council chambers at City Hall. The 18th annual Thorold Wild Game Dinner will be held on Saturday, April 7th at Club Capri. Doors will open at 6 p.m. and tickets are available for $70 by calling Joe Corella at 905-227-4275. Finally, Thorold Community Theater's spring production of Key for Two, adoption of the minutes, and Fred, I have Councillor Wilson's not here?
I have it.
Okay, I'll call it, okay. Regular council meeting minutes of February 28th, 2018. Councillor Neale.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, signed by Councillor Ugolini, that the regular council meeting minutes of February 20th, 2018 are hereby adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Neale. Are there any items for discussion in these minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. General Committee meeting minutes of February 20th, 2018. Councillor Handley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sharon, that the General Committee meetings minutes of February 20th, 2018 be hereby adopted.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. General Committee budget meeting minutes of February 13, 2018. Councillor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sharon, that the General Committee budget meeting minutes of February 13th, 2018 be hereby adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Ugolini. Again, are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, are there any declarations of conflicts of interest? Seeing none, I'll move into the public meeting. We don't have a public meeting, sorry. Into civic recognition, which we don't have any, and we have no presentations. So I move into motions for support. City of Thorold, Go Train Service Extension. Councillor Neale.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll read the motion. Whereas Trillium Railway are removing the tracks from areas in Thorold, and whereas Canadian National Railway could take out the tracks from Thorold South to Port Colborne at any time, and whereas the region of Niagara has a Grow South initiative, and whereas Metrolinx are bringing GO train service to Niagara Falls from Toronto. Now therefore be it resolved that, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ugolini, that the City of Thorold schedule a meeting to discuss with the City of Welland, City of Port Colborne, the region of Niagara regarding extending GO train service south from St. Catharines GO Station to Port Colborne before the aforementioned tracks are removed. And Mr. Mayor, as you know, some of them are being removed in Thorold by Trillium, and the tracks that are going south to north are just sitting there, basically not being used, and I can see maybe CN coming along and taking those tracks out. And before that happens, I think we have to have a good discussion regarding whether it's GO Train or whether some other Trillium or some other train transportation people that might want to put a service from St. Catharines up to Port Colborne. And so I think it's worthy of a discussion at least to make sure that we have gone as far as we can go in order to make service go south to Port Colborne and all the communities that are along there.
Maybe we can put in the old streetcars, Fred? Yeah, I rode those. Did you ride them?
Yeah, I wrote them. It's an option. It's one of the options, so that's the motion. Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I'll,
I have a comment, I guess.
yeah,
He wants to circulate it to these cities and the region.
okay, that would be under, okay. Okay, any other speakers to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. That's that one. Again, City of Thorold, post-secondary satellite research study areas. Councillor Neale.
Again, Mr. Mayor, I think we have discussed this before. You and I have anyways. And it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ugolini that whereas the City of Thorold has a large number of university and college students living in the downtown area, and we know it by the parking. And whereas the students have to travel a distance to study and do research at Brock University and Niagara College main campuses. And whereas there is no designated lounge in downtown Thorold for the students to relax and socialize. Therefore, it be resolved that the City of Thorold request a meeting with Brock University and Niagara College to discuss creating a satellite research and study hub in the downtown area. And I believe we
wanna speak
discussed
to
this a
that?
little bit in prior meetings, but I think we have to put it forward to both the university and the college to at least look at putting a research center in downtown Thorold.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. City of Thorold, 10-year capital forecast. I have Councillor Pion on that one now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sharon. Whereas the General Committee met on February 13th, 2018 to deliberate the 2018 budget, and whereas during the course of discussion, 2 items were requested to be added to the 10-year capital forecast with no formal motion being voted upon. Now therefore be it resolved that 1, the cost of $300,000 for arena seats at the Doherty Arena be included in the 10-year forecast, and 2, the cost of $1,971,000 for improvements to Broderick Avenue be included in the 10-year forecast.
Okay. Speakers to the motion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, another City of Thorold, Darlene Ryan, Port Robinson Community Center, Easter egg hunt. Councillor Pion.
Myself and seconded by Councillor Sharon. Whereas the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Board of Management mandate is to foster, improve, and enhance the community center. And whereas the community center in Port Robinson is the hub of a variety of activities in that area. And whereas the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Board of Management would like to continue to offer a few activities throughout the year. And whereas Thorold City Council must provide approval for each activity that falls outside the board mandate, now therefore be it resolved, 1, that Thorold City Council approve the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Board of Management request to host an Easter egg hunt on March 31st, 2018 at the community center, and 2, that the cost to a maximum of $475 for the event be approved and funded from the pasta dinner event that they raised money for.
Okay. Are any speakers to the motion? I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And our final one, referred to Councillor Pioni, Town of Fort Erie. Request for financial assistance in development of a human trafficking program.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Sharon. that the correspondence received from the town of Fort Erie from its council meeting of February 12, 2018, advising of its contribution of $5,000 to be given to the YWCA Niagara Region Anti-Human Trafficking Division for the purpose of creating a training and awareness program that will assist community leaders, educational institutions, first responders, police officers, municipal officials, and the communities at large throughout the region, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to all municipalities within Niagara and the region of Niagara to adopt this motion be received and supported. And further, that the town of Fort Erie also requests a contribution of $5,000 be made by the city of Thorold to the YWCA Niagara Region Anti-Human Trafficking Division be received and supported.
Speakers to the motion. Councillor Neale.
Just a quick question, the $5,000, which account are we taking it from? My bank account.
Through Mr. Mayor, council could consider taking it out of the encumbrance reserve.
Thank you. Okay, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Statement by councillors. I have, who's up first? Councillor Ugolini's up first, and I think Councillor Handley's up second. Councillor Ugolini?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have two items tonight. Last meeting, I brought up to ask for a staff report regarding the rat problem, and I just want to amend that to make sure that we add skunks to that issue. We've got a serious issue. Just to let you know, skunks are out already, and some are out in the daylight hours, which is scary. Councillor Neale seen one personally by his house in the daylight hours. Residents cannot go out and take their dogs for a walk at night. South Confederation's really bad. I had a call last week when we had the 2 nice days. Woman's out walking her dog gets sprayed on the boulevard, and they can't walk through the parks because there's skunks in people's yards. So we have a real issue. We need to look at what we can do as a city, our part, to help in the problem, because it's not just in residential properties, it's on city property as well. So can we add that to our report on this when we're dealing with the rats?
Okay, well, can I add raccoons also? Because
We can add raccoons.
my side of town is infested with raccoons.
No, you're right. Raccoons is another one that we should add.
Where there's lots of trees, there's
So let's, so we have an issue that we need to look at and work collaboratively.
Councillor Handley, you want to add something?
Well, we may as well just add raccoons, muskrats, groundhogs, any type of rodent. Because me personally, I got an email from the lady, you know what I told her? If you expect us as a council to be responsible for rodents, skunks, and rats, I trapped 17 myself last year myself at my house. I'm taking my own initiative as myself, realizing that rats will be here after mankind's gone. And you think it's a joke. They will be, like cockroaches will and flies will be. I hate to say it, but we have more important issues as a council. I hate to say it. Hey, I got a skunk issue too, and I see raccoons during the daytime, I see skunks during the daytime, and that's why we have natural resources. And for me, I think the spending staff times and resources of tackling that type of situation isn't a mandate by council. That's how I tackle it myself. There's laws out there. You can trap a skunk, you can trap a raccoon, you can trap a squirrel, you can deliver it 1 kilometer away from where you live, and you have to release it, or you can dispose of it like a lot of them do, just fill up a pail of water, and, it's known. But if we're going to start, there's a rat problem, there's a skunk problem, there's a groundhog problem, there's a muskrat problem. Rodents have been around here since before we've been around. They're going to be here a long time after we're gone. It's something the city of Niagara Falls put out a thing for a rat program, not to go on it, but you got to look at what are we going to do. Is every time we get a complaint about a rodent being in someone's yard, we're going to ask for a report to come forward and that stuff and spend staff time? It's a rodent. That's why they have exterminators. That's why they have natural resources. Hate to say it, but that's the way I feel personally.
I have Mr. Strojanovich first, because he has some information for us?
Just for council's information, and certainly it's at the will of council, but certainly I've already reached out to staff. We have had some calls about skunks, so in reaching out to our neighboring municipalities in St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, and in the region as well, we are looking to see whether there is any kind of issue for our neighboring municipalities. Then also too, just for staff as we're out on the roads and in the parks, just looking at and just determining the scope of the issue and just making sure that this isn't just a one of or a couple of people that are complaining or maybe just a pocket issue. So we're looking at it and assessing and determining whether it's actually something that really needs a response, a formal response, or it's they're more isolated issues. So just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Pion.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that there's a problem, but I also agree with what Councillor Handley said. We can't start being the Pied Piper. It's not our mandate. I was okay with it once we talked about looking into the rat problem, including skunks and all of the rodents. I mean, our squirrels next. That's not our mandate. And there's a difference also between naturally occurring animals and introduced species that we have to consider here. Naturally introduced animals are here. Mm-hmm. And you know, I realize it's a problem. My own dog, I had a run with a skunk last week. I had to spend midnight washing him down with peroxide and baking soda. But you deal with it. And there are places, maybe there's things we can do, such as, you know, how to keep compost, things we can pass bylaws for perhaps. But I'm very uncomfortable to start extending it to every single animal that might be a nuisance to people. Mm-hmm. Personally, I'd rather just see a report on rats.
Thank you, Councillor. Terry?
Yeah, I just
Councillor
want to say
Eagalini,
that
I'm sorry.
I think we have to be part of the solution because there's a problem. I'm not saying that we have to spend a lot of resources on it. I'm saying that a lot of this is education, putting stuff on our website, helping, because there is a problem out there, okay? And a lot of the problems because of the growth going on in the city. We're digging and building, and them animals are moving into the residential areas. So to say there's not a problem, I think you go out in South Confederation and talk to the people there. They'll tell you there's a problem. I've lived in South Confederation for 25 years, and I'm going to tell you, I never had a problem like we've had the last 2 years. So where did this problem come from all of a sudden? So there is an issue. I'm telling you there's an issue, and we need to address it. I'm not saying that we need to spend tons of resources, but we need to be part of the solution.
Well, Councillor, you're going to need to put a motion on the floor. The rat issue was passed last week. So if you want to deal with skunks, the skunk issue.
I wanted to, my original thing is to add skunks to that report.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Pion, before I ask the clerk to read
I
the
agree
motion.
there's a problem. And I would be okay to add skunks to the report. I guess I need to see what the report is. You're right that if we can post information, I'm all for that. If we can help people to do things that maybe they weren't aware that they could do, I'm all for that as well. So if the report is, rats and skunks, and I would be willing to look at that. There's no harm in looking at it. I guess we can have this discussion once we see the report and then decide how much resources to spend on it. I'm fine with that.
Okay, thank you. Can you speak? Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a clarification. So the report is going to identify the communication strategy, advising residents how they can avoid certain stuff so that they're discouraged skunk coming in the neighborhood. Is that what we're looking for?
That plus then we have recommendations on what we can do from our end.
Perfect, thank you.
An education program?
Education and staff may have a couple ideas from our end. Like looking at our own properties, I don't think this is a major financial issue, but I think it needs to get some strength.
I'll have the clerk read the motion.
So I specifically drafted the motion for it to be broad, so it could include public education, review of maybe our clean yards bylaw. So it reads that staff be directed to prepare a report on what initiatives can be undertaken to address skunk, raccoons, and rodent issues in the municipality.
Okay, that's the motion on the floor. Speakers to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? I'm not getting my number. All those in favor again? 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? That's carried. Okay, statements by councilors?
I got one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Councilor Ugolini.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about the initiatives that we've done for St. Patrick's Day preparation. We've held meetings, we've been proactive, we've met with Brock University, Niagara Regional Police, Mayor Luciani, CAO, Manoj Delwaria, Anthony Longo's been in on some of those, Councillor Longo on some of those discussions with senior staff from Brock, Niagara Regional Police. We actually had one meeting which City Clerk Donna Delvecchio and myself attended with the City of St. Catharines, and worked on a strategy where both communities can work together. So some of the initiatives that are coming out of that, and you received a report, some of the initiatives are extra policing, okay, that will take place on the St. Patrick's Day weekend. The daytime policing, the extra policing will be paid for by Brock University, and the evening policing will be picked up by the Niagara Regional Police, so there'll be extra policing. There's a new pilot project that Brock started last weekend, and that is that staff security, Brock Security is patrolling student neighborhoods on the weekends. And they're highlighting if there's a problem area, problems, they can get a hold of the regional police, and they're a presence out in the neighborhood, and they're helping, which works in conjunction with the policing and with our bylaw. There will also be extra bylaw protection, patrol on the weekend, not only in our city, but in the City of St. Catharines, and they'll be working in conjunction, and they'll be working with the regional police together to give us coverage, and as well as that, we'll be working with fire services as well. And that is happening in St. Catharines as well as Thorold. Another initiative that's being put out by Busu is Busu's going to do some door knocking on the Thursday before St. Patrick's Day weekend, especially in high student neighborhoods, to talk to the neighborhood and tell them about expectations and how to be a good neighbor. So that'll take place. And then there'll be a follow-up, wrap-up meeting after that weekend with all parties concerned, and to see how everything went, what incidents have been reported, and what we can do to make improvements in the future. So, thank you.
Thank you. An excellent meeting with everybody this morning, that the people that Councillor Ugolini talked about, and it was very, very proactive. Everybody was on the same wavelength, and I thought it was a very positive meeting. I don't think we're going to have too many problems on St. Patrick's Day this year. Thank you. Did you want to comment on that?
Just one quick thing is that Brock is going to put together a media release. So the city, NRPS, Brock, we are all going to put together our comments so that we are all in it together. And that's the message that we want to convey, that yes, our bylaw guys will be there along with the NRPS and also a representative from Brock University. Thank you.
Thank you. Statements by Councillor. I have Councillor Handley, and he's going to talk to us about when the report regarding the ladder truck for the fire department will be before council, and facilities management issues. Councillor Handley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Number one first, please.
Number one, I'm going to talk about the facility management issues. The issue I have with that, Mr. Mayor, it was brought to my attention in February of that some ongoing work that may possibly been going to be proceeding at Station 1 in downtown Thorold on the second floor. In fact, members had received the email that stated, just letting everyone know that Wednesday, February 28th, we will be moving our stuff to the other side of the room so that the new offices can be put up. I had concerns with that, Mr. Mayor, because when I read that, I actually attended City Hall here and talked to the acting chief building official, and then I had arranged meetings with Manoj Delario, our CAO, And in turn, we had a conference call with George, and I have several concerns about in regards to that. And my concern is that there's supposedly going to be a meeting tomorrow where the chief is going to discuss some options or ideas that he has in regards to the second floor at the Station 1. And I don't believe the meeting should be held, and I'll give you the reasoning being is that, one, it may go to a letter that that Protection Hose Company number 1 have use of the upper floor of the new fire hall building subject to approval of the fire chief, no outside group to use the hall without getting permission from Protection Hose Company number 1, and that the corporation, the city of Thorold, the town of Thorold, reserve the right to use same for municipal purposes if need arises, and I recognize that. But a report had been filed and made in 2013, and it was regard to reviewing infrastructure in regards to the city, and when doing so, that there should be engaging appropriate city and fire department personnel through open communication, including stakeholder consultation meetings. And that hasn't happened, and we as councillors, I believe, are stakeholders, and being that we now have a facility manager within the city of Thorold, this undertaking, I believe, should be a part of his threshold and not be an undertaking of the chief, even though it may be his wish to build offices on the second floor of the facilities on Station 1. My other concerns was that, as going through the report that was available to the council, that there's 4 instances where it says factually mentioned, Mr. Mayor, that before any work is to be done at Station 1, a full structure engineer review of Station 1 should be undertaken to determine the exact costing for any required refurbishing of the station for future use on functionality. Page 85, it goes on to mention it 3 more times, twice on page 96. If the city is considering keeping the station as an active fire station for the future, then a full structure review should be completed. As also states, a full structure engineer review of Station 1 should be undertaken to determine the exact costing for any required refurbishing of the station in relation to future use and functionality. And then again, Mr. Mayor, it even mentioned again on page 127 of the report, the exact same thing. The building is showing signs of aging. An engineering report of the building should be undertaken if the building is remain in use. So I think having a meeting with our firemen, be a volunteer PHC, in regards to works that may be done on the second floor shouldn't be considered or even opted at this time, just for the fact of the recommendations and what is stated within the report that this council has already paid for. It also talks in there in regards to the administration staff of it, and then reasoning for it is another concern of mine, is it was to be for offices for members of our fire services staffing. And I believe one of my concerns is that any new construction renovations that the city is undertaking in this day, 2018, what I can find out, that they should be built to current Ontario Disability Act, as the clerk is shaking her head. And schedules, and all municipal buildings and staff shall be accessible by persons with disabilities. If we were to build offices on the second floor of Station 1, that's not accessible by people with disabilities because there's no elevator. The doors would have to be 38 inches wide. We would have to redo the washroom. So this isn't just a simple renovation that may have occurred up there. And to be given notice that such may be occurring, and that they are to remove their belongings or displace them to another part of the building without staff being aware of that, I have concerns with it. And I know just from the ODA standards, that project couldn't move forward. And regardless, there's no windows up there. There's actually no air conditioning. The air conditioning is inside the windows. It's a window air conditioning. There's asbestos tiles in there for sure from 1964, so there would have to be a remediation done in the entire building. And if any work was to proceed and any disturbance of those tiles was to occur, anybody in that building would have to vacate it while the work was ongoing. I know that for regulations, health and safety acts, I'll get you. But my biggest concern is that, in that I'm wanting to put a notice of motion forward that any meeting that is to occur tomorrow be ceased to happen at this time until a comprehensive report come back through the operations department via the, or how I may be able to put it forward.
Just let us conference, we'll be back.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, because I'm not wanting this to occur.
Right, so waive the rules of the bylaw to allow that motion to go forward because of the short time frame.
Okay, I need, right off the bat, Councillor Handley, want to jump in and waive the rules of the procedural bylaw so that we can proceed with what you want to do?
That's right, because that was my concern, because I was saying,
So-
do I have to bring this back in 2 weeks?
Okay, I'm going to call a motion to waive the rules, okay?
Yes.
Because it is time sensitive. Okay, I'll call a question on that. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. You can proceed.
So I wanted to put a motion on the floor that any meeting that does occur tomorrow is hereby suspended, and that staff, via the Director of Operations, via the facilities manager, who we hired for that specific purpose, come back with a comprehensive review and report in regards to staffing issues and where those staffing facilities shall be located and what's in the best interest of the municipality. You know, because I can, and just to add one other thing, like, you know, not to note, because another part of the, you know, I won't go on, but I have other sections here and too in regards to that.
I'll let the clerk read the motion once she gets this all typed up.
It's in regards to, basically, the motions to read that in order for us to move forward and have these facilities or rooms built, we need to go through why we hired an individual. As far as Curtis Dre is the facilities manager, he's the one that should be presenting this report and what's in the best interest of the municipality. I don't want to be throwing monies away when we could be spending monies possibly in other places or for better resources. And my biggest concern is you can't have offices, I know for a fact, on the second floor where a fire prevention officer, a training officer, the administrative secretary, or the chief may be situated without having full handicap accessibility under ODA standards for 2018. Can't happen.
Okay.
So go ahead, please.
Go ahead, Councillor Neale.
I'll second that motion that
Okay,
Councillor has stated. And from my point of view, we got a great report that Councillor Handley has been talking about, and we haven't decided whether to build a new fire hall or renovate the old fire hall yet. We haven't had a discussion on that. And I agree with them that I think until that happens, if they want to temporarily put some dividers upstairs for the staff to do their job with not very much renovation at this time, then I think that would be appropriate. But I think we have a lot of discussion in order to take a look at station number 1 as it is now. And, you know, accessibility is a big thing nowadays.
Yeah.
And without us having accessibility to that second floor, that Councillor Handley has stated, I don't think we should move ahead with it at the present moment.
Councillor, I'm going to call for speakers to your motion.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? Yourself, Councillor Handley, do you have any more?
No, I've said, as my part, that's why I want us to do our due diligence, what report.
I just got one comment, and that's with regards to protection hose. Have they been consulted at all about this? Do they know about it? Because that has always been, to my understanding, that's been their space. I'm sorry, maybe, Chief, you could answer that for me, please?
Yes, Your Mayor, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that no email correspondence has come forward from myself directing them to do anything else other than I'd like to have a meeting with the entire protection hose company tomorrow evening. That is correct. In terms of the construction and the rest, we haven't really got to that stage, but I can concur with Councillor Neale. All we're looking at doing is putting offices up there. We're not looking at major renovations. I'm unsure of the scope of the work, if there would even be a building permit. If the building permit, these are material alterations. They're not full walls up to the ceiling because we know of all the concerns there. We know of the asbestos. We have a report. But further to that, the Director of Engineering and Curtis Dre are coming to review this. We haven't jumped to anything yet. But we're not talking major renovations because we know, I'm certified in the building code. I am a building code inspector. We know what kicks in for the rest of it. We're not going to go down that road. But there is no doubt that we have a shortage. We do have a personnel that works at another location by herself, and it is a health and safety issue that we need to address, and this is a short-term solution. It's not full walls, and it's not major renovations. It is, there are some walls going to be constructed, though. And again, they're not full walls, and these are just needed to protect ourselves, and we are running out of room. We have limited space. These are not new walls, new construction, stairways, elevators. I concur that the station is old, and we need to look at the replacement, and that should be a priority.
Chief, actually, you didn't, I'm sorry, but you didn't answer my question. I just wanted, my question was, has Protection Hose been consulted on this issue? The bottom line is, I don't want things going on up there, then I have 30 volunteer firefighters chasing me around saying, what are you doing to our space? And I want to know that, make sure that they're fully aware of this plan. I just don't want to all of a sudden drop it out of space on them.
No, I concur with you,
then,
Your Worship.
And then we as councillors are scrambling to answer questions.
So
I would like them to be fully aware.
in December, when I first came there and everyone brought concerns with me, I did emphasize to them that we would be looking at doing some construction to put a personnel upstairs, 2 people in particular. Other than that, there's been no consulting because I waited for the budget and then set this meeting for tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't want to get in a battle here, Mr. Mayor, but to tell you the truth, I have an email that's sent from the district chief to the volunteer firefighters, telling them to vacate part of the premises. He gave a detailed explanation at the meeting on February the 7th, in fact, what was going to occur, that a wall was going to be put up from the top of the stairwell where the doors are, following along a hallway would be built, not to exceed past the doorway, going into the kitchen area, and then the wall would go across in a northerly direction to the wall. They were given a full explanation of what the intentions were, and then they were sent an email that on Wednesday, like I just read, that's an email. That ain't me sending a letter. That's an email sent to everybody stating that they are going to be removing their materials because the understanding was that the construction would commence the following day, and they'd even asked if they didn't move it, what would happen, and they were told by the district chief, then the contractor would be removing it. And I got the email right here, and it's time-stamped and everything, and it doesn't lie. So I'm not getting into the debate about whether or not someone was notified or not, but there's been no consultation between Protection Hose Company number 1, just an email saying to remove your belongings from one half of the hall and get it to the other end. Take down your trophy cases, take down all the helmet displays, take down all your photography. That's exactly what they were told, and move it to the other end of the hall because we're building offices. And I don't want that to occur without a proper consultation. That's why I'm putting this motion forward.
Okay, I'm going to ask the clerk to read the motion.
So the
Again.
motion on the floor is that any meeting scheduled for March 7th not proceed with respect to renovations at Fire Station 1, and that the manager of community services be directed to prepare a comprehensive report for potential uses of the second floor of Fire Station 1, including all costs and risks associated.
Yes.
Okay, that's the motion. Are there any other speakers to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
And actually, that brings me to my second report in regards to the aerial. Because of the structural integrity of the building, inside the report, even though it was brought forward as buying a new aerial, it actually states in the report that it should be noted that the telesquirt is a small aerial apparatus at only 65 feet, and a new aerial vehicle designed to meet the city's requirements in the next 20 years may not fit in the garage bay. And I can tell council right now, the last time the city of Thorold bought an aerial, when they brought it to Station 1, it didn't fit in the bay. They then had to man it out of Station 2 until the city of Thorold could modify the floor, which I have pictures of that I don't need to show you, in regards to hold the telesquirt in there. Also, we don't have to meet. I got all the information here about automatic aid reports. In the report, actually in the report that the city paid for, it states, nonetheless, the vehicle at the high end of its lifespan in consideration in relation to replacing refurbishment unit is a priority. Another option for the city is to look for other alternatives relating to securing elevated and aerial operations from another source. And within the report, those other sources, automatic aid agreements under Act 1997, Section 4, municipal responsibilities, Section 2, mutual aid and shared responsibilities, also Section 1. So we can have alternatives, and I can't see at this time, because of our structure review and us possibly building a new fire hall, why would we, I know we asked the report, but why would we even consider building or paying $1.3 million for an aerial truck when the current facilities we have isn't going to fit that truck? And we're looking for down the road. I don't believe it'll fit, because I got pictures of the current ladder. It's only got a 10 centimeter clearance. So regardless, that's what I think that the money could be better out spent.
Okay. Chief, do you want to talk to that?
Absolutely, Your Worship. Through you, Mr. Mayor. There was never an intention, by the way, for any replacement aerial to go into Station 1. The original aerial did go to Station 2, and the intention would be, because we do require a new aerial, that it would be going into Station 2. It's designed for it, it fits it, accommodates it. It's the proper location for it in the short term until there's a new station. Regardless, it was never meant to go into Station 1. There's going to be no construction for a new truck there. That's all.
Well, just my case in point then, why spend 1.3 million or consider it when we're probably 5 years away from building a new fire station in this municipality? I can tell you that, right? I honestly believe that. It's not happening within the next term of council and may not happen beyond that, even though it may be recommended. We don't have the land. We're really not sure, what's the best option for the city. We've never reviewed it. We've never taken into consideration all these reports we've already paid for. And that should be something. And not that I don't want a report to still come forward in regards to the aerial. I'm just making council aware that what we've already paid for in regards to an aerial truck and what options we do have.
Chief Dixon?
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, just because the issue's been clouded here, the idea for a new aerial truck has always been, it's needing replacement. It's 25 years, going on 26 years now. It is past its life expectancy, and the intention is to put it into Station 2. It's for the volunteers at Station 2. It's not for somewhere there's other locations, so I don't see really the issue with that. Let's not confuse the issue of a new Station 1 with the aerial truck, because the aerial truck, regardless of what happens, it's going to Station 2. Operationally, that's the right truck for that station, and those volunteers there deserve that truck, and it's going to be a great asset for them.
And I appreciate that. My concern isn't where the truck's going to be. My concern is, do we actually need to spend 1.3 million? Because also in the report, and the last thing I'll say is, there is no national standard that legally mandates the replacement of emergency vehicles. And that's in the report.
Yeah, they blacked that out. Okay.
Just a comment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It was the direction through budget that the fire chief bring forward a future report for justification, so maybe this discussion should be reserved for when that report actually does come forward.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, speakers to the motion. Any more? Are there any? There's
No motion.
Okay.
Sorry for taking.
Okay, statements by Councillor. Just what myself, I'd like to ask our Director of Finance and our Fire Chief to work together. We have a firefighter overtime numbers now are way through the roof. Chief, this is not directed at you. You've just started. Please don't think that I'm going after you. I'm not. But Ms. Morrow, could you please tell council where our overtime numbers are?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the books aren't closed for 2017, but we anticipate the fire overtime will be over $200,000.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask for both of you to put your head together and put a report forward, telling us, what's causing all this overtime. I'd like to see this, a fulsome report on it, because I'm troubled by that number, and I would like to get a report. My motion is to put a report forward. Ms. Morrow?
Through Mr. Mayor, as part of the budget, there was a recommendation that a probationary firefighter be hired, and I believe that that also has been referred back to the fire chief to come back to council.
Okay.
But that really is the, probably the best option for council.
But it's not telling me why all this overtime. What I want to do is a report basically stating what is creating all this overtime, and you can put solutions in there also. And I'm not telling you I want it next meeting. Whenever you can get,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, though, as my colleague did indicate, we presented part of the budget was, we explained that there's a significant portion of that is because there's a long-term illness of a senior firefighter who's a captain on the job. So every time we're filling in for that position, we're filling in at a much higher overtime rate than if we were just a higher probationary firefighter.
the thing is,
And that's a long-term illness that's already been going on for a year and a half.
I still like a report, because the thing is, when I see firefighters making more money than a CAO or a director of finance, I'm troubled by that. And I just want to see that in writing. That bothers me.
Well, through yourself, Mr. Mayor, just one last section. You're short a fire chief, so again, you took a member of the firefighting service, another captain, you removed him. So then the entire 6 months or longer, you're hiring at least 2 people, so you're short-staffed.
Okay, I'll compromise with you.
But I'm
You have
happy to
bring
prepare a
you have to
report for
bring
you.
up. You have to bring a report forward on the part-time firefighters. You could justify it by giving us in that report. Tell us why there is so much overtime and how we can solve it. Is that a fair compromise?
Absolutely, Your Mayor.
Okay. That's the motion on the floor. I'm asking for a report, though. Okay. Okay, we don't need, I don't need a motion, it's just going to be a direction to staff, to council, okay? So that's that. Okay, we'll move on. Notice of motions. Councilor Ulini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna work with the city clerk to bring a notice of motion next meeting, hopefully, on an amendment to the parking bylaw. And I don't want to change the parking bylaw because we're doing good things, but here's the problem we're running into. We're asking cars to be off the road to plow the streets. So then they move on to the apron just so the plow can come by, and they're getting ticketed on the apron because it can't park on the apron. So I'm going to ask for an amendment that we allow parking on the apron only in a snow event, and that the car must be moved back onto the road after the plows go by. And when it's parked on the apron, it's not obstructing the road or the sidewalk. And I think it's a fair compromise for people that are trying to follow the rules and get the roads plowed, but at the same time,
Okay.
they're trying to do what's right, and they're getting a ticket if they're on the apron or on the road. So let's get them off the road, get the roads plowed, then they can go back on the road. And so it's just going to give them a window of opportunity.
Okay.
So we'll work on that and present it next council meeting.
Okay. Thank you, and you'll work with the clerk on that?
Yes.
Okay. Any other notice of motions? I don't have a deputy mayor to give me the floor. I have one. Fred, will you take the floor and give me the floor?
Certainly, Mr.
Take
Mayor.
the gavel and give me the floor.
Go ahead and make your motion.
Thank you, Council, Acting Mayor.
Write that
Okay,
down in the
I've been
minutes.
wanting, okay, I've been wanting to do something for a long, long time, and and it has to do with climate change and global warming. Well, over the years, we've seen how extreme storms have come. And I take this from, my thoughts come from Houston, and when they had that horrible flooding there. And the big reason why they had that was so bad was because Houston is a concrete jungle. There's no green space in Houston, very little. So there's nowhere where the water can go to be absorbed. I picked off yesterday's Toronto Star, and the headline is, "Water is your new fire." Basically, flooding is going to be your biggest issue in the future. And because of the fact, and it specifically states, it specifically states, I'm just going to read a couple paragraphs. Paving over porous paradise or any absorbent ground increases the risk of basement flooding, says researchers using City of Toronto data. Their study could help GTA homeowners make sense of the sometimes ridiculed notion that the amount of land people cover with buildings, parking pads, parking lots, and more is linked to the costly rising tide of urban flooding that is expected to worsen in the coming years. So that's the gist of my notice of motion that I will be bringing forward, and from that, we need to make sure that we don't go out there and start, selling our sports parks, our passive parks, or any of our green space to developers to build on. We need to maintain X amount of green space within our community at all times. So basically, I'm going to be coming back through with a notice of motion to protect most of our passive parks and our sports parks, so that nowhere down the road in the future, something can be done where council can come in and say, hey, we're going to take Hut Park and we're going to develop it because only a few people use it. A lot of people do use that park, by the way. So that's the gist of my notice of motion, and then I'll work with the clerk to basically put it together for our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It doesn't need a seconder, and we won't discuss it tonight. We'll discuss it when the motion comes forward. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I'll give you that. Everything you need is in that article. Pardon me?
We're going to general committee now.
Yeah, okay. Let's go right in. That's the end of notice of motion. I think we want to resolve into general committee. And I'd like to call this general committee meeting to order. Again, are there any declarations of conflicts of interest? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. No delegations. And I'll call for reports to be brought forward for consent first. And the first, are there any of these two consent items for which council would like to poll to discuss? I have one, and that's the first one. The memorandum Understanding with the City of Welland, and basically, it's first of it in the Niagara Peninsula. The intent of this memorandum of understanding is to combine our requirements. We will have enough critical mass to obtain better pricing. It's supposed to. Okay, senior staff from both municipalities have met, and we've come up with this MOU, and basically it's all about it's in procurement. And we've signed a memorandum of understanding with Welland, and I personally would like to thank our CAO, Manoj Delwadia, and Mr. Gary Long, the CAO of Welland, Mr. Gary Long, who spent a significant amount of time putting this together, and they did a phenomenal job to bring it forward. And from that, we have now other municipalities interested in joining, and I hope to have more announcements on that in the very near future. So I just wanted to comment on that one, and I didn't know if you wanted to comment on that also.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the whole intent, as I mentioned previously as well, the whole intent of this MOU is to get better purchasing prices so that we can stretch our dollars. If we can combine our forces with, through economies of scale, if we can get better pricing, that's the whole intent of this. Thank you.
So that's all I wanted to talk about. So I'll call a question on all the consent reports. All those in favor? Oh, I need a mover first, sorry. Councillor Ugolini? Okay, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Discussion reports, CC 2018-09, election sign bylaw, and that's
Yes.
Ms. Del Vecchio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's being recommended that staff be directed to prepare a bylaw that governs federal, provincial, and municipal election signs to be presented to council on April 17th. That concludes the report.
Speakers to the report, Councillor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I read the report, and after reading it, I want to make an amendment to the staff report. The staff report recommends from a municipal perspective that 45 days before the election signs can go up. I want that reduced to 35 days, which I really do think is still too long, but I think it's fair. The reasoning is that puts us past homecoming weekend for Brock University. On top of that, I did some research and found that the City of Toronto currently uses 25 days before an election for their sign bylaw, the biggest city in Canada, and 72 hours for sign removal. Provincial and federal use the day of the writ, and in the provincial election, the day of the writ is 28 days before an election, so that means that it's 28 days for signs in Ontario. So I think being 35 is more than plenty, if not too much, but I think it's a good compromise from 45. And so I'm going to put forward that when your report comes back, that amendment go from 45 to 35 for municipal elections, and I can live with the 48 hours for signs, but if somebody wants 72, I mean, but I think 40, that we've had 48 for years, haven't we? Yeah. So go from 45 to 35, that's the amendment that I'm asking.
Speakers to the amendment. Okay, I'll call a question on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And back to the original report. Are there any other speakers to the report? Seeing none, then I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We have no in-camera session, so ladies and gentlemen, I'll adjourn this meeting. Oh, no?
You gotta go back.
What? Where? Oh, I forgot the bylaws. See, I'm gonna put the bylaws on the, after this, so that,
So we have to go back to having special counsel.
okay, we're back in our council agenda. First reading of the bylaws. Oh, right there. Motion to ratify recommendations from General Committee, Councillor Ugolini. Try to get out of here too early.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sharon, that the council adopt those items approved by General Committee on March 6, 2018.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Bylaws. First reading of a bylaws, Councillor Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Ugolini, that leave be given to introduce the following bylaws. Bylaw number 14, 2018, a bylaw to adopt the 2018 budgets. Bylaw 15, 2018, being a bylaw to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw 2140, bracket 97, by removing the holding symbol for 11 single detached lots on Sparkle Drive within the Rolling Meadows subdivision Phase 7, currently zoned Rolling Meadows RM-R1C H-1 zone. Bylaw number 16, 2018, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Council of the Corporation of the City of Thorold at its regular council and general meetings of March 6, 2018, and that the same be read the first time.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Ugolini, that the bylaw just read the first time, be read a second and third, and do pass, and that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Council committees and board meeting minutes to review for information purposes. Councillor Longo.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Sharon that the council receive and file the minutes council local board that presented.
All those in favor? Oh, you want to speak to one?
I want to speak to one.
Go ahead.
On the UN declaration, as we all know, we have moved forward and we're very forward-looking as far as Indigenous people are concerned. In Thorold, we have a new monument that's a very good addition to our community. We had a very nice meeting with the working group, and there were several recommendations that Mitch Baird brought forward that we thought we should do. St. Catharines does it now, and so does Niagara Lake, and that is a motion that I will bring forward now. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ugolini, that the City of Thorold approach Mitch Baird to provide cultural training to our employees, that the City of Thorold provide Indigenous contact information on our website, and that we discuss with Mitch Baird locations for an education.
Councillor, I'm going to have to stop you. You have to bring that up under a notice of motion. Can you bring that up under a notice of motion?
Yeah, you can bring it up.
Then I want to bring this up under as a notice of motion.
Good. Then you'll just work with our clerk.
Yes.
And okay. I'll call the question again on that. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, I'll let Councillor Handley adjourn this meeting.
I'll move by myself, second by Councillor Sharon, that this meeting hereby be adjourned at 7:34 p.m.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. See you for a beer. Another time.
Yeah, well, I thought it would be over 7.